A controversial finish between Larson and Hamlin gives Denny Hamlin his record-breaking 7th win at Pocono Raceway, ensuring that one day he will have a stone at the track that the fans can go and boo. Hello everybody, welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host Alex Lambert, and let's talk about NASCAR in the hills of Pocono. And we have a ton to get into this afternoon after a controversial finish between a upset Kyle Larson and a happy Denny Hamlin, Denny Hamlin was able to get his record-breaking 7th win at Pocono, surpassing Jeff Gordon, who had 6 going into today. So let's, without any further ado, try to get into all the action. We have some playoff stuff to talk about as well. Some guys that were on the cut line had really bad days, and a couple other guys finishing the top 10. Let's try to break everything down following this race at Pocono with now 5 races remaining in the regular season. We have to start out with the main story, and that is Denny Hamlin outdueling Kyle Larson at the end of this race. You can take a look at the finish here. Denny Hamlin really pushed it hard up the racetrack, did not give Larson a whole lot of room. He said in his post-race interview he never touched him, but he definitely makes a little bit of contact with him here and puts him up in the wall. Now, when I look at this, I see something very similar to what happened a year ago with him and Ross Chastain. Sure, he didn't put him in the wall. He didn't straight up wreck him, but he put Larson in such a situation to where Larson really had nothing to do. He either lets off the gas completely and then loses the lead, or gasses it and then slams into the wall and ends up wrecked, which is ultimately what happened. I believe Kyle Larson ended up finishing in the 21st position. So it's unfortunate for Kyle Larson, but Denny Hamlin really did push the bubble there, and we've seen that a few times with Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson. You can go back to Kansas earlier this year on the final lap where Denny Hamlin, gives Kyle Larson a little bit of a nudge, gives him the bumper a little bit, and Larson ultimately loses that race, finishing second as well. So it's unfortunate for Larson. I think the first incident at Kansas was kind of more of a fair deal, but this one to me seems a little bit more dirty. Didn't really give Larson much of a chance. But if you're Denny Hamlin, you're looking at it as well. You can't really pass. Once I lose the clean air, once I get in the dirty air behind the car, I'm not going to be able to get to him. This could be my only chance. So he decides to push it really hard there on that second to last restart. So Denny Hamlin was able to claim his 7th win. And when he did his burnout on the front straightaway, when that caution came out, ensuring that he won the race, the fans went crazy, started booing like crazy. That is the biggest crowd reaction as far as boos go that I can remember in a long time. I remember Kyle Busch winning at Bristol in 2017, had a lot of boos, but I think this might have been even bigger. I mean, it was crazy, the sound and the fans, how loud they were with booing Denny Hamlin. It was definitely a surreal sight and an interesting one to see. There were a few bottles being thrown on the racetrack, a few cans being thrown on the track, but I think most fans just kept it with a few gestures with their hands and of course booing Denny Hamlin. And Denny Hamlin, I don't even think he went and got the checkered flag, so the fans definitely kept him away at Pocono. But that is, regardless of how he got it, that is an impressive 7th win at Pocono for Denny Hamlin. He won there. I believe he swept there in his rookie season, or maybe it was his second season, but Denny Hamlin swept the races at Pocono when we went there twice a year. Obviously won there a couple of years ago. Almost won last year, and he did come across the line first last year, but failed post-race inspections, so that win was ultimately given to Chase Elliott. But if it wasn't for post-race inspections being failed, Denny Hamlin would have 2 in a row and 8 wins at the racetrack, but he does not. So Denny Hamlin, a record-breaking, extremely impressive 7 wins at one single racetrack at Pocono. Now with one race a year, I think is super impressive and maybe a little bit overlooked following this controversial finish. He even said in his interview that one day they have a bunch of stones in the garage area at Pocono where they put some of the legends at that racetrack's name on them. He said one day the fans will be able to come out and boo my stone at the track. So Denny Hamlin obviously embracing the hatred following the race today. But we have a whole lot of action to talk about just besides that crazy finish. Another thing that I heard, I know Tyler Reddick had a complaint about it, that they waited till after the white flag, was the 14 car, I believe it was, who spun at the end of the race and couldn't refire up the race car. NASCAR ultimately waited a little while before throwing the caution, waited till they got to that turn to throw the caution. If you're NASCAR, you have to throw the caution once you get to the white. You can't let those cars go into the tunnel turn with a car stopped halfway in the racetrack. That would have been an extremely dangerous situation for everybody involved, so I'm glad NASCAR didn't do that. There was some controversy, should they have thrown it earlier? I don't think so. With 2 laps to go, I don't think with the feedback you've seen from the fans, I don't think we needed or wanted another overtime finish. And also, it looked like he started going there, so you definitely don't want to throw a caution if he gets off of the racetrack. And then ultimately, after the white flag was thrown, is when obviously the car wouldn't go at all. So I think NASCAR officiated that the best way they could. It was kind of a bad situation, but that's the best way NASCAR could have officiated it. I know the NBC booth was talking about how the fans were booing. No, they were booing Denny Hamlin for sure at the end of that situation. So let's go through the top 10 here because there's a lot to break down with the top 10. Denny Hamlin obviously first. Tyler Reddick was able to get up to second. I actually didn't know that until I was able to check the results. Martin Truex Jr. was out front for a long time during this race. It looked like he was the strongest car throughout the field for most of the day, but it was so hard to pass once you got in dirty air and once you got in traffic. The cars just didn't drive well. Kevin Harvick with a solid 4th place finish. Another solid day for Kevin Harvick. Once again, continues to prove that he's one of the best cars out there right now, even with his teammates, his Stewart-Haas Racing teammates, nowhere to be seen, it feels like, every week when we go to these racetracks. Ty Gibbs, a solid 5th place finish. He was running 3rd for a long time at one point. Some of the guys in the broadcast booth thought he had a good shot to win this race. This was a year ago where he made his NASCAR debut. I don't see Ty Gibbs consistently gets better every week. I talked about how he needs to start finishing the results, getting the results instead of just running good and not finishing the race. But Ty Gibbs, once again in the top 5, having what I would consider a extremely impressive rookie season. How many rookies do you see come out and almost contend for wins, but contend for top 5s and top 10s every single week at every single track? Ty Gibbs is doing it. Even though he doesn't always get the results, he's really fast right now and continuing to drive that car into top 5 positions. Christopher Bell once again came back from a spin early on in the race, finishes in the 6th position. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., another one of those drivers. This is actually a really good season for him. He won the Daytona 500 earlier this season, guaranteed in the playoffs. But, I don't think he's one of those guys we're going to see get eliminated in the first round. He definitely could. I'm not saying he's a championship favorite, but when I look at Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in the top 10 consistently week in and week out at a lot of different type of tracks, once again in the 7th place position tonight, we've seen how a Daytona 500 win can propel drivers to do better in the future and help the team out. We're seeing it right now. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is probably having one of his best seasons ever, finishing 7th today and 11th on the playoff grid right now. Then Harrison Burton with a solid run was able to get up into the top 10, 8th place, hasn't been in the top 10 a whole lot this season. Eric Jones with a couple of top 10s over the last few weeks in that 43 car. Remember, this was a really rough start to the year for that team, but they've been able to run a little bit better in another top 10 finish today. Chase Elliott is actually able to finish in the top 10 once again. Now, Elliott's been really consistent in the races that he's been in. He hasn't been competing for wins, but he has been somewhat consistent. But he is 56 points below the cut line now. I think it was 71 going into today. With 5 races to go, Chase Elliott's really got to ramp it up. You got to finish in the top 5, top 10, week in and week out to have a shot to make the playoffs. It's going to be really close on points if he doesn't get a win. Once again, 5 races to go, 56 below. I still don't think it's going to be done, but it could be a little bit closer than I thought it was going to be originally. So let's take a look at the playoff grid. I'll try to once again break everything down because some guys in the bubble had really good days. Some guys below the bubble now had disastrous days, and we'll break all that down. But you have William Byron with 4 wins, continues to sit at the top of the playoff grid. Truex and Kyle Busch with 3 wins on the season. Hamlin and Larson. And we have 5 drivers now with multiple wins, with Denny Hamlin winning today. But when I look at, this is 5 races to go in the regular season. We're in mid-July. This is the midsummer portion of the schedule. This is the time of the year you start looking at who the championship favorite is. I look at William Byron. Early in the year, I would have said, heck yes, William Byron is the championship favorite. He was consistent, led early today, led some laps today, and was able to run well today. Didn't get the finish. But overall, William Byron really has not been that fast after the first, I'd say, quarter of the season. Really, after we left Charlotte, William Byron has not shown the same amount of speed. Sure, he got the win at Atlanta, but that's such a different type of racetrack Atlanta is than we go to week in and week out, and all the racetracks in the playoffs. You have to look at Martin Truex Jr., who finished 3rd today, led laps today. Every single week, every type of track we go to, every week he is in contention, not for a good finish, not for a decent day, for the victory, and he's won 3 out of the last 10 races. Really strong right now. Martin Truex Jr. definitely the championship favorite. I look at Kyle Busch. I never even saw him in the race today. He was outside the top 20 most of the day. Every time somebody would come down pit road, he was on pit road. It was a disastrous day once again for Kyle Busch. They were able to squeak away a couple of top 10s the last few weeks. Chicago, Atlanta kind of got a little bit lucky in those situations with the races being shortened, but the speed, that team, that number 8 team has really missed it the last few weeks. Was able to dominate St. Louis back in June, and then ever since then has fallen off. And today, last week, couldn't even get in the top, wrecked early on, and then today hit the wall a couple of times. That car has not been as fast as we thought it would be. Kyle Busch currently in a bit of a midsummer slump. Hopefully, as me being a big fan of him, hopefully he's able to come back and get some more victories, or at least run better, run back in the top 10 as we get closer and closer to the playoffs. You look at Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, they're consistent, they're fast, but I don't think you can consider them a championship favorite at the time being. I do want to look at Joey Logano for a minute, because Joey Logano, trying to change a momentum of a championship, was fast early on, was leading, using some strategy moves to get some points, some bonus points, and then gets caught up in an accident. We'll take a look a little bit later at that as well, because Daniel Suarez was involved in that. But here we are. Here's the points standings, particularly the drivers that are not in on a win. We have 11 different winners. Once again, now with the situation I'm looking at, with the races we have remaining and only 5 races to go, I say Kevin Harvick, Keselowski, Buescher are in. I don't think you have to worry about them. They're going to make it in on points. But Bubba Wallace today had a really solid day, was able to finish in the top, had a decent run. I believe he got a few stage points, was running in the top 10 for a majority of the day. Bubba Wallace recovering from a mistake made in qualifying yesterday. Solid day for Bubba, trying to make the playoffs. Right now he's 26 points above. He's not guaranteed. There could always be another winner or 2 different winners, but it's decent. 26 points above is a somewhat comfortable points cushion for Bubba Wallace. Michael McDowell, once again, he was able to get a few stage points, I believe, in the top 10, kind of like Bubba Wallace was. Now 17 points above. He's taking this race car that I don't think should be in the playoffs and putting it and driving it and being aggressive and taking risk, and that whole team is put this right now in the 16th position in points, 17 points above the cut line. It's a somewhat decent cushion. There could always be a winner below. You have raving Chase Elliott coming through the field on points, but it's still impressive to me that Michael McDowell is in right now with 5 races to go in the regular season. I hope he makes it, because I think from a driver standpoint, from a team standpoint, when you look at what they have to work with, they deserve to be in the playoffs by a mile. A.J. Allmendinger, not too good of a day today. Never really saw him in the top. I think he tagged the wall a few times, 17 points below now. Daniel Suarez, here's a wreck I was talking about earlier with Joey Logano. Joey Logano gets caught up in the back on some strategy calls, gets wrecked, and then that kind of jumbles the field up. Guys trying to dodge Joey Logano, and Daniel Suarez gets turned head-on into the wall. Massive day for Daniel Suarez. That was completely ruined. This is not good for Daniel Suarez at all. Falls 23 points below the cut line. That is a disastrous, I think, for Daniel Suarez trying to make the playoffs. 23 points below, 5 races to go. You're really going to have to step it up. When you're below the cut line, you're not in control of your destiny as much as you are like Bubba Wallace, Michael McDowell. If they have a bad day, that's on them. They can lose position. But if they continue to have good days, it's all in their hands. Daniel Suarez from this point on can have good days and good days and good days. But if Bubba Wallace, Michael McDowell have somewhat good days too, it's not in Daniel Suarez's control. That's what's frustrating about the situation for the 99, who's had speed. Both of those cars, the Trackhouse 91 car, Team 91, Ross Chastain, both got wins this season. Daniel Suarez definitely frustrated right now. Got a few road courses coming up. He hasn't been that fast at the road courses this year, but want to point to those as an opportunity for him to either get some points, gain on those guys, gain on the cut line, or at least get a victory. Ty Gibbs, 28 points below right now. Obviously, once again, a couple of weeks where he should have finished better. Did not finish 5th today, which is solid. If Ty Gibbs makes it, I think that's really impressive. If he doesn't make it, maybe it's a little bit disappointing, but I don't expect a rookie in the Cup Series to make the playoffs. Maybe Ty Gibbs. I think he's already impressed me with how he acts, how he runs. Really want to look at Ty Gibbs for winning races in maybe a year from now. Alex Bowman, once again, just has another bad week. I can go back to Chicago Street when he got in a wreck with Denny Hamlin. I can go back to Atlanta when he got in a wreck with Denny Hamlin. I can go to today when he was in the top 5 at the end of the race and spun around kind of on his own. You can take a replay here. Denny Hamlin was involved in this as well, but Denny Hamlin didn't touch him. Denny Hamlin actually lets off of the gas. Yes, Denny Hamlin might have made a dirty move on Larson, but not on Bowman. You can see Hamlin let off the gas to try to give Bowman an opportunity to fix the car, get back going. but the rear end just gets around for Bowman. He goes in and taps the wall. And not a solid day at all for Alex Bowman. This has been a terrible summer stretch, a terrible season for Alex Bowman, a driver who led points at one time, got a points penalty for something not being right on the car, missed races due to injury. What a disastrous season this turned into for Alex Bowman. I look at the races coming up. I don't see a race he can win. Maybe Daytona, because that one's a little bit wild, but I don't see a race that I think he would win looking at it now, and I don't think he's going to point his way in. I think Alex Bowman's going to miss the 16-driver playoffs this season, which is super disappointing for him. One other topic I do want to talk about is Austin Dillon and Tyler Reddick. Austin Dillon kind of dove down on Tyler Reddick here. This was a controversial thing as well. The tempers were flaring all day today, but Tyler Reddick, I think, held his line. Maybe he didn't turn left as quick as Dillon wanted him to and pushed it a little hard there, but I don't think Dillon can be upset about it. Dillon was obviously upset in his interview saying he needs to wreck more people. We hear that a lot. I think Dillon will take a replay at it, look at a replay, and kind of figure out what happened. I think Austin Dillon will understand that that's more or less just a racing deal than anything else. Here's just a replay of him throwing his helmet after that. Tried to throw it at Tyler Reddick. I think it missed his car there, just barely missed it, and then it rolls back down the track later on. So I just wanted to mention that because I thought that was kind of funny and an interesting storyline. We had tempers flaring all day today. The fans were active all day. Big crowd at Pocono. Looked to be a sold-out crowd. I think it was a sold-out crowd. Biggest crowd there since at least 2010, so that was exciting to see. And once again, 5 races to go. It's going to be interesting. We go to Richmond next week, another strategic racetrack in a different way than Pocono, but it is still a very strategic track. Should be exciting to see what we get next week following Richmond. Should be exciting. But that's it. That's all there is to talk about following this race at Pocono. Like and subscribe if you like the video. Please share the video if you do. I really do appreciate it. And of course, about Kyle Busch not even being in the race today, let's get rowdy.